what has me feel good is connected to how well I can meet my own needs and wants, right? I also recognize that I set the tone for the entire household as the matriarch. I'm the creator of delight in the household. And if that's the case, then I want to make sure that my needs, and this is not about, okay, I feel like eating this. It means at this moment, oh, I need a break. At this moment, I need to create a boundary here. So I want to go down the rabbit hole of what my needs and wants. Why do I want it? Why is this important to me? And then once I have a strong why, do the what it takes in order to meet that need. And then I feel like I'm living the life that I want to and connected to the values that I hold.
Welcome to Empowered Kids TV, where we introduce you to the people and ideas to help you take action and create the family of your dreams. Our guest today is the founder of BuildGreatMinds.com. She's an emotional intelligence specialist and a conscious parenting coach that has been highly effective at transforming families for over 20 years. Our guest continues to work with the United Nations, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, Mindvalley University, Children's Aid, Fortune 500 companies like Google, and schools and parents across the globe who want to support themselves and others towards their highest emotional development and creating a life that they love. What I love about our guest is her pragmatic nature and her courage to sometimes share some inconvenient truths with us in a way that inspires a deep desire for change. So please, help me to welcome a woman who asks her kids to rate her parenting every day in the strive to do better and show us all that we can also do the same. The amazing Rhea Lalla. Rhea, welcome to Empowered Kids TV.
Thank you so much for having me, Nicole. So happy to be here.
I want to start with getting really clear about what EQ is. So can you kind of share your definition for us so that we can understand how it works and how can we identify the impact of low EQ in our lives?
Got it. So EQ stands for emotional intelligence, and it covers a variety of different things. So one is, I see these as the foundational parts of emotional intelligence. So self-awareness, self-regulation, empathy, social skills, and motivation are all like the pivotal areas of emotional intelligence. However, the part that I'm most curious about and have dedicated my time in exploring is self-awareness, how we calm ourselves down, and how we take perspectives. Okay, so we can dive into a little bit about what that means in real life to be self-aware. So to be self-aware is right now, Nicole, you're having a feeling. Maybe I'm having a feeling. Right now I feel excited. I feel a little bit nervous because I always get a little bit energized when I'm on an interview. There may have been things earlier on that are much more low-lying, that, maybe a frustration I was holding on that I'm bringing into the space. So self-awareness is at any given moment in time, how aware am I of the feelings that I'm having? And am I able to become aware of it and then move through it? Or does it stay unconscious and I get stuck in the feeling? Okay. The other part of self-awareness is is a people awareness, the ability to intuit, attune, climb into Nicole's world, look at the cues, the facial expressions, notice that, oh, there might be a feeling there, and this is what I think it is. Yeah. And can I influence your feeling so you don't get stuck in it? So to bring this back to the child-parent dynamic, we're using this all the time based on how attuned we are. Kids are having feelings all the time. They're feeling jealous. What an amazing emotion. It's a big emotion. If one kid can do a roly-poly, they can't do a roly-poly, right? And so, it's hard enough for us as grown adults to work through the feelings of jealousy, which is rooted in, has fear, and can manifest itself into anger. See that? So it's not even a primary feeling. It's like there's something behind it, then it changes to jealousy, then it changes to anger. So when we see something in our children, we're using all of our antennas are fully up, observing the cues, using our intuition, asking questions, and in that moment, helping the child understand themselves. But here's the thing. The more I can understand myself, remember, if I've taken my jealousy and marginalized it or hierarchied it, that's not a good emotion. Then how do I hold space? And the way I can best explain this is if anyone's ever lost someone that's very close to them, it's not that I mean, I lost my mother 4 years ago. It's not that I needed my mother to leave, the world in this form for me to empathize with somebody who lost a mother. But the more reality in life, the deeper I go with my feelings, the more I can hold space for somebody else and really understand the depths of that, right? So this is always, the kids are always a trampoline for us to become more aware of our own emotions so that we can hold space for them. And this is key. In the parent-child dynamic, it is always our responsibility to hold space for the child, not for the child to hold space for us. So that's awareness. The next piece is self-regulation. And this one's an interesting one because we teach self-regulation, how to calm down. It's important for kids to calm down. The reality is that we are social creatures. And I saw that you at some point had Gabor Mate. I think you interviewed him.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
He's fantastic.
Absolutely.
But depending on what we've seen with Gabor Mate, excuse me, is human beings are meant to co-regulate. Okay. And I use this idea of, and I want to keep bringing it back to the parent-child dynamics. I know you have a lot of parents that might be watching this. See the parent as you're the sun and the child is the planet. We sometimes flip it. What revolves around what? Does the planet revolve around the sun or the sun around the planet? Well, we know the sun is stationary. It's grounded. It's the sun. And the child is the planet. So when the child can't find their shoe, or they can't find their homework, or they're like flipping out over something, and then all of a sudden we become enmeshed and entangled into the child's hoopla, what's happened is the child is looking for us to hold space in grounded space. So they're spinning. Then we don't even know because it's unconscious. We're spinning. And now our spin ups the ante of their spin. So we have to remember that we're the sun. So to give you a good example of this, I remember once my son was doing his speech for student council president. It's a big deal. He's getting in front of the school. And, for a week or two ahead, I'm thinking to do Anthony Robbins. Let's do Anthony Robbins type, energizing and believe. Yeah, we'll bring that. However, I realized that he's stuck in his own amygdala hijack of big emotions. So this is not time for Anthony Robbins. This is as I lie next to him on the bed, I'm only focused on, and it sounds selfish, me. Where is my energy at? And this is where we have to become attuned because feelings are psychosomatic. If we, in a disembodied world where we're just thinking, cognitive loops, rumination, how do we get into our body and feel our feelings? So I know that I'm not infecting like a COVID virus, right? So that's what I call self-regulation, co-regulation, because that's how our children learn how to move through a feeling, is what is the experience like as they observe mom. So that saying, children don't listen to what you say, it's what you do. Yeah. I'm actually going to up the ante on that. Children don't listen to what you say. They watch, they tune into what you feel. So I have to now become aware of what am I feeling. And then the next important cornerstone of EQ is perspective taking. And that's my favorite. And this is something that we did growing up quite a bit. My parents made it into a game, which is probably why all my sisters are coaches. That is where you are taking a ladder and climbing down into somebody else's reality outside of this silo. Because I grew up with certain experiences and socialization. They created a lens which clouds the way I see the world. It's created all of the biases, beliefs, and blind spots. The only way I can get privy to that is to use my imagination, which is what perspective taking is. It's different from empathy. I'm using my imagination to go, there is a behavior. How many reasons can I come up to explain that behavior? And then what I teach my kids is choose the one that allows you to see the world as safe, abundant, and loving, or allows me to see my child as good and competent. So yes.
There's so much joy and beauty in that. For me, what I keep coming back to is that it's absolutely fundamental before we even get to kids and the development of their EQ for us to really get grounded on where we are on that emotional scale. Having said that, most of us have grown up learning how to disassociate from our feelings.
Correct.
In such a way that I think even the basis of self-awareness is difficult. So let's talk about how do we first begin to recognize where we are. So what is my development of emotional intelligence? How do I assess where I am on the scale before I can even figure out how do I improve and boost where I am?
Okay, so that's a very interesting question because we have blinders that allow us to, like, we go, oh, well, kids are happy. They seem happy. They're not crying every second, so I must be doing an okay job. How do I know? Remember, a lot of this is in my blind spot, and a lot of this is the patterns and programming that I've inherited, and I'm just running and thinking that I'm, actively choosing how I respond to things. The best way to know is to ask. So there's two ways I believe that we build self-awareness. One is we ask, and we in order to ask, it seems so simple, but it really takes a lot of courage, and we really got to put our ego to the side, where we show up like a curious detective and we say, teach me. Like, for example, with my kids, ever since they were probably 4, I would ask, how did you feel loved by mommy today? And then I'd ask, where today did I miss the mark? Was there any moment where you felt uncertain or disconnected, or I mean, I'm trying to think, my kids are older now, or unhappy with how things were with mommy? Why am I asking that? I asked something about where they felt loved, so I can make sure that I'm loving them in the way they uniquely want to be loved. I use this analogy where you could take your kids to try and think of like the most exciting place, Disneyland. Let's go to Disneyland. And we at Disneyland will buy them everything. And we stand in line for every line, and they get anything they want, like whatever it is, it's your day. And then when you ask them, what was the best part of that day? They say, when we were getting out of the car and you put your hand on my shoulder, you're like, oh. So that moment has us realize, quite honestly, that moment was the moment they felt connected, that they felt loved. It wasn't about all day at Disneyland. So I went off on that tangent, and now I've kind of lost the plot.
That's okay. We're talking about how do we assess where we are in terms of getting more self-aware.
Good. So now if I had asked my kids who I just took to Disneyland that question, and they said when I was getting out of the car, then that opens an exploration for, is the child, what allows you to feel loved? I like when you touch me. I like when you hug me. I remember asking my daughter once, how do you like to be kissed? And then we did demos. And then she said to me, oh, no, that kiss leaves too much wetness on my face. And I noticed inside of me this feeling that kind of clenched. Oh, you don't like my kiss? But I don't want to put that on her. That's not her responsibility. That's for me to work through. But I want to get granular about it. So I ask. So who are the people that I would ask? Well, there's probably nobody in my life that I haven't, if they're close to me. So my partner, definitely. The children, absolutely. My closest friends, how's this? How can I really want to work on myself. I want to be aware of, there might be things I'm not aware of. Is there anything that I'm doing that I can't see that can optimize my life? Or anything that I'm doing that's keeping us distant? Now, in that moment, my friend is going to want to protect me, just like my child wants to protect me. I'm going to argue that how much your partner, your child, or your friend tells you is a function of how safe they feel. And the onus is on me to allow them to feel safe. Because if they tell me I do this and I go, oh, no, I didn't, I only do that, that creates disconnection. So now I want to really listen, and I want to ask questions, and I want to take notes. Like when my kids, they tell me a lot. Okay. Conscious parenting coach, you had a tone with me today, conscious parenting. So what I do is I take notes because I want them to know this is important. I don't believe in stories, so we can get into that. I'm not a believer in teaching kids about story, but there's a reason why. What I say is, this is important to you, and this is important to me. I don't say I'm never going to do it again, because I can't say that I'm never going to do it. So I go, I'm going to make this important. Watch me. I'm going to. So it gives myself some leeway to improve. And then what I do is the next day, I've got the recipe written down. And the next day I do it. And then I go, how's that kiss? How was that? That moment, then I'm getting feedback in real time. So whatever stories or meaning that they're creating, which is what we humans do, mommy doesn't love me, this doesn't feel good, you always interrupt me, you always think you're like, whatever a friend might be thinking. Now we get to get busy, roll up our sleeves and do the work. So that's one way, is to ask people. And the other one is to actually be in a world of doing, in a world of let's put one more dish in the dishwasher and throw a load of laundry in because I've got time, or take a selfie. Sit with yourself and be able to be with yourself and allow yourself to feel your feelings. Because when you feel the feeling through to completion, not even noticing, oh, there's a pot flying across the house, I must be mad. I'm talking about being with it somatically, with the level of curiosity of a scientist. That feeling will always reveal a jewel, a gem, a epiphany at the end of that tether that you will get to your unconscious mind. So if you want to make the unconscious conscious, be brave enough to be with your feelings without needing to shuffle them under the rug or busy yourselves, because we learned when we were young to be with our sadness is to not feel good, because no one helped us understand our sadness. And so now we go, that doesn't feel good. And that's what you mean by the disassociation that we do, right? So we don't want to do that. We want to first notice. We first have to notice, I have 15 minutes to myself. And what am I doing? I'm trying to call everyone I know and say, hi, hi, hi on text messages. I have 50. I mean, I remember one time a couple years ago, and I'm not saying it took that long. I'm sure I still do it, but I'm like, oh, I have 20 minutes to myself right now. Oh, there's a rose in my rose garden. Let me take a picture of the rose and send it to everyone. That in that moment, I pulled back to observe I went meta to observe, oh, this is Rhea doing that thing called, I'm going to be by myself, but not actually be with myself. Oh, and I don't wrong it, shame it, or blame it. I just go, okay, I see what you're doing there. Be with myself.
I want to push deeper on disassociation because I listened to an interview with you and your sister Annie. And I think there was one statement, and I can't remember which of you made it, but it hit me really hard.
Yeah.
In that disassociation was almost a betrayal of self-love. And for me, that was an aha moment. And I think sometimes we're so ingrained in the habits of disassociation, we don't recognize them as disassociation. So I put the TV on, or I pick the phone up, or I call somebody, or I pick up a book, not because I'm interested in those activities, but because it's a way to escape from what's raging on the inside of me, or what's bubbling up. It doesn't even have to be a raging emotion. And I think sometimes that second step of just reminding yourself to sit still, because we're not used to being able to feel and to sit with what's happening, it's difficult. So if we're trying to practice to develop our EQ, and we know that disassociation is something we have to get over, how do we bridge that gap?
So the first is recognizing this is a value for you, and then working backwards to go, how do I, if this is important to me, what am I committed to doing? So for example, the way I re-embody myself and be really connected, so instead of disassociated, associated to my feelings and connected to them, is I build that into my morning routine. There's so right from the time I get up, I call it priming. I'm priming my day for how connected I am to everybody. But let's go back a step. This is not just about, I do affirmations, I do visualizations, I have a whole process that I do, but I want to make sure that I've cleared out anything, any anxiety about the day, anything I'm bringing in from yesterday. I want to make sure that when I wake up, my chest feels expansive and open, or notice if it feels tight and contracted. From the moment I get up, that's one of the first things I'm checking into. So that's a checking in. It's a somatic, visceral check-in. Then if I notice there's something there, well, I have a process, and for me, it involves breathing. It involves so I know that I hold most of my emotion in my chest, if not all. So that is the tell that I go, it's my quick litmus test. My chest feels contracted. Oh, something, instead of going, I'm acting in a way and the kids look like they're afraid, I'm acting in a way, my chest feels contracted. Something must be up. Notice, but I can't get there if I'm not used to figuring out where it is in my body. So for whoever's listening, I first recommend become attuned to your body, which means to just notice that you have a body, and just start. It could start simply. Notice your fingertips and toes. Notice when you felt somebody cut you off while you were driving. Take a moment just to tune into your body and go, where do I feel? Do I feel tightness in my neck? When I'm around my mother, do I feel like there's contraction in my throat? Maybe I'm not expressive. People that tend to not express their needs tend to feel a lot of tension in their throat. And then when I feel the feeling, then so here's the level of granularity. I give it a number. So, oh, this is like an 8 out of 10. Why? Because I'm about to do something to help myself move through the feeling. And I want to know, do I or do I not feel better? Now, my chest expansiveness can also give me a clue. But if I have a number, then for anyone who's practicing this out, they'll go, oh, that worked. And your mind starts realizing this is a tool that I can pull out of my pocket and save me in a moment. So I would recommend starting there. There was something that I wanted to mention about, I also get very connected to my little girl. So little Rhea and little Nicole, and being able to make sure that her needs are being met. I liken it to, if you have a child who, whenever they had an ice cream cone and mom or dad would always come and take a bite out of it, right? They wouldn't ask, they just take a bite and they just see this diminishing ice cream cone. You smile because that reminds you of when you had an ice cream cone when you were a child. Like, mom just wants a bite, but the bite's too big, right? And it's going away. And so there was like no sense of preservation and acceptance of where the child's at, this very coveted special thing of the ice cream, and it's now going. And now the child grows up. I'm just using this very innocuous example. The child grows up and they're now being expected to share because sharing is good. And so, but they're thinking, but nobody shared with me and I had to always give. And so Anais Nin once said, the famous philosopher, whatever you didn't get in your own childhood, you will unconsciously and unwittingly hold back from your children, right? Why is that important? Because I want to become aware of what my little girl needed and wanted, and then make sure that my mom or dad, they may be alive, they may not be alive, they may never say the words that I'm dying for them to hear. They may never say, Rhea, which is something actually my mother did say to me in our life, which is, Rhea, before I die, I want to know how to love you in the way you want to be loved. And I may have missed the mark on many occasions, but that's how important this is to me. Because kids don't care whether or not you perfect it. They want to know whether you can go back and heal. And I would argue that things become actually more extraordinary through the healing process, places you get to go in your heart and mind that you never would have gone had the infraction not have taken place. So being able to connect with my little girl as part of my self-awareness, and it helps me re-embody myself, because whose job is it now to meet that little girl's needs? It's a recognition that the cavalry isn't coming. Now, I had very conscious parents in this way, but when I recognize that sometimes the cavalry may not be coming, so who I need to, this is the act of reparenting ourselves.
Yeah, you got to be your own rescue.
Yes.
All right. For parents who are in the space of, if my kids would only behave differently, I will feel better. How do they begin to have that mindset shift in recognizing the value that they can gain by working on their association versus the disassociation of their feelings?
So let's go back to that initial statement. If my kids could only behave better, I will feel better.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's just see what questions are right in there. I hold the belief that every behavior has an understandable, justifiable reason behind it. We may not like the reason, like when the child throws some food at the dinner table, that could be that the child is disrespectful, or I don't know, that whole day I was disconnected from the child and now I'm talking to husband or friend at the play date, might say, and really the child is doing whatever clever and manipulative tools to get my attention. So that's the first framing that I would hold. And this is where perspective taking in EQ comes in. What is the context by which the behavior is happening? What is the experience that the child is having? When I hold that, that's a game changer. I might now have to go, what is it about me that created that? And then well, that's a game changing question to ask right there. And I tend to find the most interesting answers, because this is what I always go back to. The child didn't come out of the womb like this, right? Like there's no situation where the child came out the womb not listening. This happened in a context. And maybe what we're really angry is at ourselves, because maybe we haven't created the right boundaries and we don't know how to create the right boundaries, but let's call it for what it is. So this is where we have to kind of pull away from our ego and be in perspective taking mode. But before you can even get to perspective taking mode, you have to be able to self-regulate. If I'm not calm, I'll always be, that child is just being naughty, right? And so when the child is, if this child could only listen, so let's now question that for a moment. Why is it important for the child to listen? I don't know. I don't know. Let's hold it for a moment and just explore that. Why? Because there might be a, well, let's use one that I alluded to earlier on, which is, I'm sorry, right? If a child hits somebody, we should tell the child should say, I'm sorry. Okay, well, if we never question that, then we will follow that plan. The child does something, say you're sorry. Say you're sorry to your brother. Okay, so let's think about the words I'm sorry. I'm sorry hasn't fixed anything. I'm sorry has no enlightenment in it. What has enlightenment is something along the lines of, well, it's impact. What people really want more than I'm sorry is impact. You know, Nicole, when I was a few minutes late for the interview, your time is important, and I recognize that you have a lot of balls you're juggling. And I just want to let you know that I recognize that, and I wouldn't want to take. So I want to value your time, and I'll make sure that I can do better next time. That has you feel like your feelings have been validated, you feel affirmed, and you understand that I get it. Notice I didn't say I'm sorry at all. So this idea of teaching kids to say sorry, which might be an affront to some of the parents listening, but first of all, developmentally, I don't want my child saying something where they're not even understanding what they're saying. I'd rather them have an intrinsic understanding, which is the same reason why, we should, teach kids about sharing when they're young. A child that's 2, that is fantastically engaged in how a clock works, should not have to share that clock with another child. Leave the child alone and let neurons fire. And then the other child needs to be distracted onto something else. And then when they're done, but we have to notice our own ego, our sense of self. I don't want to look like a bad mother in front of, at the play dates. So I don't want to look like my child is just this hoggy child that's hogging up the toys. We have to be able to get over all of that and maybe discuss it and have an engagement about it and recognize why. So this idea of having children listen, I can't debunk it. There are things that kids need to listen to. And there are times where obviously, what it is, I think, is a co-creation. First, I should say this. If your child is not listening to you, listening is a function of relationship. So that means it's a relationship issue. We need to go back and go, what is happening that the child's not listening? That's the interesting question there.
I love that. It puts so much, I think a lot of the times as parents, we can feel powerless. Like, I don't know what to do to influence, so I don't know what to do to get these kids to listen. But when you break it down like that, it really puts the parent back in the driver's seat, and you can own your power and realize that, 1, I have 100% power over how I get to feel if I can take the time to be self-aware and to regulate. But 2, when there's breakdown, I can own that. As the son, as the lead in the relationship, I can own that.
You've nailed it. You don't want to give away your power, because when you feel you have choice and perceived power, then you feel like the world's not happening to me.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. Let's talk about, what do we need to do in our parenting dynamic if we are to help our kids develop the core skills that they need for emotional intelligence?
Got it. So emotional intelligence is very nuanced. Okay. It's the difference between someone going to a party and everyone kind of liking that person, and someone just going, I didn't even talk to that person, but I don't really like them. Right. So emotions are an act of subtleties. I could be looking at you and I raise my eyebrow like literally a millimeter,
Yep.
and it changes my whole look.
Yeah.
That's how nuanced it is.
And the feeling, it also changes the feeling that I get.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
So now when we talk about how to, like, the beginnings start with having our kids, supporting our kids through an understanding of their feelings, which means to first notice whether or not we ourselves have hierarchied feelings. And then when we realize, okay, we've done that, now how do we bring in emotional language? Because if the child, just like Daniel Goleman said, if they have a feeling and they can't have a word for it, they will disassociate because it just feels like terror in their nervous system. So we want to build their emotional vocabulary. We often focus too much on the children, but we need to. So there's nothing, I'm very transparent. When I do a live event, wherever it might be in the world, let's use the one we were talking about right before this started. You know, at the beginning, I go, I don't know if people are going to attend. So in that moment, based on my kid's age, I was telling them, oh, I feel a bit nervous or anxious. So what happens is the child goes, oh, I'm not some weirdo child that has this feeling that I don't have a name for. And I tell them where it is in my body. And then now we have a discussion. Do you ever feel like that? And so in that little repertoire, I'm able to share. So this feels so counterintuitive, but most things in conscious parenting are share more than you ask. Share more than you ask. Now, some people go, well, I have a really boring job. What am I supposed to share about, my I'm like, no, no, no. When there's a moment where you're in a meeting and you had no clue or you zoned out and you felt tired. Do you ever feel like that? I had a moment I had to give a presentation. I didn't know if I sounded smart in the presentation. Do you ever feel like that? I had a moment where I had a really great idea, but I didn't put my hand up and I was nervous about what people would. Do you ever feel like that? And I give a word to it. Embarrassed, insecure, lonely, worried, fear, the big, rich, meaty ones. There's no bad emotions, right? So that would be one very important piece. And then allowing the children to also recognize, like the earlier you can get kids to recognize that feelings occur in their body, then they have not a mountain to climb later on in life. It's like a hill. So they go, oh, they become much more attuned. So this is something that for our generation didn't happen because there were no coaches, there was not a lot of conscious parenting stuff out there. But now we can start building that awareness. Even if you have a young child that's 2 and 3, you can put a teddy bear on their belly. Let's see the teddy bear rise and fall. That, I have to say, I don't think I knew how to breathe until I was in my 30s, and I was breathing from here and here. And then when I really started knowing what a deep diaphragmatic breath is, it was a game changer. But kids can learn that at 2, what it is to take a deep breath and to hold it and to let it out and to, bring mindfulness into it. So that's one place I would begin. You can also play really fun games with your children. So if you have young children, but at any age, I play this game with my children. They're in their teens. I play this with my husband. Okay. And that is perspective taking games. So it's like my husband and I might be sitting, I don't know, at a coffee shop, and we have lots to talk about, but if we want to, we can go to, what do you think is going on with them too? We have no clue. It's a game. We're reading cues. We're reading the energy of the space, and we're coming up with an imaginative reason for her facial expressions and his facial expressions. But when you do that with children at a very early age, at a playground or at a play date, or, at a park, they start becoming very aware of the subtleties and the nuances of interaction. Do they ever know the truth, like what they came up with is true? No, but it doesn't matter because, if there's someone close to you, for example, if the child would say, "Mom, are you mad right now?" Amazing. And in that moment, it's really good to be honest because that will throw off the child's intuition and off kilter, right? So if you're mad, it's better you say, "Yes, I notice that I'm feeling frustrated right now. I'm going to do some deep breaths," or whatever it is you're going to do. But with people outside of us, like a stranger that just cut us off in traffic, we won't know. Was it that they're a jerk, or is it that their daughter's at the hospital? One has you go cut off everybody. Yeah. One has you mad in that car ranting about it for the next 15 minutes. So in that moment, perspective, just one perspective changes everything. I won't know the truth. In this moment, I'm going to consciously and magnificently choose the one that allows me to feel like the world is safe and abundant.
I love that. I want to ask about when kids feel like they're struggling to get the language for their emotion. Would you say it's okay for us to offer a word? So would we offer, you feel embarrassed, or would you think that that's putting words into their mouths?
Such a great question. And I always want to give the child an opportunity to try and express themselves. And I always want to offer what it might be as an invitation. Yeah. Could it be that I notice that sometimes I feel when this happens, like I share a story and I notice that the feeling for me feels like I'm embarrassed or I'm feeling lonely. And then and then I share that. Could that be it? So I'm helping them find the word, but not until I've given them a chance. Now, the magic is happening well before that moment, right? Well before the moment where you see the child tightened, contracted. All the work we're doing about when you watch a show, when you read a book, when you're interacting with the world at large and dissecting human facial expressions. Why did that person say that? What do you think he was feeling? That lends itself for that magical moment now, because that moment while they were watching, I don't know, Inside Out or some particular movie was, they could get an inkling of, look at that facial expression. What are they feeling in that book? Oh, it feels, they could be lonely. Good. Do you ever feel lonely? And then now we bring that in. And so there's many opportunities outside of the moment where the breakdown's happening or the break. Yeah. But yeah,
Sorry, go ahead, Rhea.
but I was just going to say, yes, you can substitute a word so that you can help your child along once you give them a chance to offer one first.
Okay. So you mentioned breakdown. And so I want to talk about when we're already triggered, whether it's us as the parent or the child. Is there a habit that we can cultivate in our family to allow us to use those moments to be able to self-regulate without creating damage to the relationship? So
Right.
I'm triggered. I didn't have the time to be self-aware.
Yeah.
I didn't soothe. I'm off.
Yeah. Okay. So every parent's just nodding their head because every parent on the planet is in there. And so this is the moment I recognize that. And again, the more connected we are to our body, remember our body will, when we get attuned to our body, we'll be able to catch our feelings upstream. So we think we got mad about this instance when really here happened. And then here I didn't have a boundary. And here I did more than I was prepared to do. And here I didn't eat. And now I'm here. Right.
I was like, okay.
Yeah. So the more attuned I am and keep checking in with my body, the more I can catch it upstream. Yeah. But let's assume I miss all the tells, because I'm going to argue that the body was always whispering. It never comes as a thump until the breakdown happens. It's always whispering. Our job is to listen to the whispers. If we miss all the whispers and we're at the thump, then I would recommend now you just go and own it. So I go, all right, the name, because I love Name It to Tame It, which Dan Siegel got from, I can't remember who he got it from, but I say transparently, I notice I'm feeling. So if the kids were bickering in the back seat, I notice that I'm feeling, I love the word I'm noticed. I notice that I'm feeling frustrated right now, that there's bickering. Okay. I'm going to take a moment to do some deep breathing. Now, even if I did act in a way that was not useful or optimized, the minute I come into myself, I'm going to go back now and go, I noticed that, or I noticed that I am feeling frustrated. I'm going to take a moment to breathe. You're welcome to breathe with me, because of what I'm not doing is going off to some corner, doing the magic, and then coming back and they're like, well, what happened? I want to make sure that that is transparent to the child. So they're seeing mom, she had a tone, she sounded a bit growly, and then now I'm doing something that they're observing. But I'm not trying to hide it. I mean, for my husband, if I felt frustrated, and he's wonderful, but sometimes I'll grab his hand and I go, okay, I love you and I'm feeling so frustrated right now. And I might be squeezing the heck out of his hand. But the mere fact that I'm able to just express how I'm feeling has dissipated the frustration. And now I'm about to express, or I could say, listen, I want to, I would love to share what's going on for me. And I'd love for you to just be able to listen to what's going on. And I notice that I'm feeling frustrated and I love you, but I'm not energetically pulling the love away. Parents tend to pull love away energetically with, they bulge their eyes out. They're misbehaving at an
Right, bro.
aunt's house. Yeah. And the child knows that if I don't pull my socks up, I'm going to get it.
Yeah.
Now, does it work? Yes, it works. And there's a cost. The cost is fear. So ideally, we don't have to resort to that as much as we can be aware of and be able to lead by connection. So how do we build a connection? We build a connection by staying curious, asking questions, attuning, making sure that every day that we have, I mean, there's so many different things, but make sure that every day that there's some time. I just did something for a really big company on parenting yesterday, and they said that, sometimes I only have 10 minutes. I'm so busy, I've got 10 minutes. And then I go, okay, well, if you've got 10 minutes, make sure it's the most extraordinary 10 minutes. Like, this is like the end of the world is going to happen, and you've got 10 minutes. What do you got? That means the phone goes away, the computer goes away. That means you stop thinking about what you're going to cook or what you have to, report you have to create. It's, I'm here with you, and the world has ceased to exist in this moment. And so then the child, in those moments, the child feels that sense of connection. And when the child feels connected to you, they're more apt to listen. So there's many parts to that, from our tone, our words, our energy. We want to try as much as possible to be mindful of it. And here's the thing, we're going to drop the ball. And when we drop the ball, then we go back and we mend. I have to say that I would say almost the majority, if not all, would not want to have the infraction or the disconnection not happen, because where we got to go to in terms of love ups and understanding and connection could not have been arrived. That's the reframe. We could not have got to that magical place of deeper understanding of how we think, what hurts us. So that's why no fight, don't waste any fight, or a quarrel.
I love it. Don't waste any fight. I love that one.
Check out the gems. Yeah.
I want to talk about some activities we can do when we're triggered. So you talked about breathing, talk about taking that deep breath. And I've heard you say before, let your exhale be slightly longer than your inhale to really soothe your body. Are there other things that you have in your tool bag that you can share with us to help us calm down so that we can get to that place of regulating ourselves quicker?
So I love a nowing exercise. So my nowing exercise is where I go to my 5 senses. And, for anyone who's listening, just try this right now. Even if something was, if you thought about something anxious or frustrating, and you can do this after, as you embody this frustratable, anxious situation that you might have encountered this week, what has us feeling frustrated or anxious or any big feeling is because we're living in the future or the past. Why did that person say this? I wouldn't say this. I wouldn't do this. Why are they behaving this way? Or some worry about the future. When you now, that is when you're really living in your life. Be here now. So if I go to my senses, my sense of smell, taste, touch, hearing, and what am I missing? Smell, taste, touch, hearing, and it's going to come to me in the middle of the night. Yeah. Sight. Oh my gosh, sight. When I go to those things right now in the moment, it is actually impossible for me to be thinking about a future worry or a past, what just happened. I'm actually viscerally here now in the moment. And what that does is that creates a little bit of distance from the big feeling that's trying to hijack me and run the show. And then it allows me to be here in the now. So instead of the spin, I can bring myself back to this embodied experience of being in my moment and create a little bit of reprieve from wherever my mind is wanting to take me in meaning and story. So nowing is a great one. Breathing, I always think about, instead of twice the exhale, just think about, you want to blow out a candle. I tell my kids, try imagine you're trying to blow out a candle, but you never really want to blow it out. So it's a long, slow, steady exhale. So if I'm triggered, moving your body is huge. I've tested this out. Yeah, you can dance. I remember one time I was doing we love to do car rides. I love to do road trips. And we always start off holding hands, my husband and I. And something tripped me up where I go, I don't want to hold your hand. But this is not how we start a car ride. So in this moment, as I'm working through my feelings, I turn on the radio. The car hasn't moved yet, but I just turn on the radio. It just happens to be divinely a song that just I love, got me in my body. And because being in your body, like hearing music gets you in your body, I could work through the feeling. And within like a minute and a half, I reached out and I grabbed his hand. So notice that this contracted feeling of making yourself tight. I know I don't want to go anywhere. I'm just going to stay right here, crossing my legs. And if you want, just get some empirical data, say, I don't want to walk and do anything but sit here right now, but I'm going to just walk to the end of my driveway. That's it, And then I go, okay, well, I don't feel that bad. I'm just going to walk and move to, the neighbor's house and I'm coming back. I've noticed and tested this out. I'm not the only one, but that within a couple of minutes of moving, like John Medina, famous neuroscientist, wrote a book called Brain Rules. He said, if you're not moving, you're depressed. He just puts it drops it like that. If you're not moving, you're depressed. So if we want to move and get good endorphins going, we want to be able to move our body. So again, this goes back to when I'm triggered. If I have a moment, I've gotten my somatic experiencing exercise where I go into my body and I get really granular because I don't want to waste that either. I don't want to waste. There's a feeling I'm having, and it's like it's thumping at the door saying, pay attention to me. I'm coming with gifts. Mm-hmm. And so in that moment, I don't want to lose that. So I tend to go in. I feel my feelings with a lot of granularity. I have a whole process for that. And then I tap in with my little girl. So I have an entire interaction with my little girl. And then I really am trying to figure out what is it that she wants and needs in order to feel safe and to feel happy right now. And I make whatever she says as connection to the divine. It is the connection to my unconscious. So now whatever she says, I'm going to gift that to her and make it important. I remember I was living in the Caribbean for a bit, and I have a business in the Caribbean. I have my own business. My husband was doing his work, and then we were homeschooling. We're creating the curriculum, but we had hired a teacher. Okay, all of this is going on, and as I took the laundry downstairs, I just felt this deep frustration in me, and then anger, and so it all got mixed in. And so I said, okay. I just sat with myself and I tuned into my little girl. And then what she said to me, she goes, Rhea, you're never happy. You always want more. And I knew that it wasn't that I want things. She's saying that, Rhea, with balls in the air and trying to be an octopus as my spirit animal, she needs a break. She needs to know she's lovable and good when she takes a break and doesn't try and do anything. So I can't just go, yes, child, little Rhea. It's important. I own that. So now I have to give up. I have to give up having my white stay white and my color stay colored when my husband does the laundry. I have to give up the control, right? And in this moment, once I recognize, oh, it was because I didn't think. I have this whole story that I might have to lose 2 blouses because he's going to somehow put that in the dryer. And then once I let go of these things, I go, oh, it's okay. And I'm going to honor her needs as if whatever your beliefs are, whether it's the universe or God, this is God. This is the universe speaking to me right now.
It's beautiful. Rhea, tell all our viewers where we can find out more about your work.
Well, yes, you can check me out I'm at www.buildgreatminds.com. And for anyone who even wants to learn about questions you can ask your kids, you can just go to buildgreatminds.com/gift. And there's an entire 100 questions on how to build relationship and find the right timing. So yeah, you can check it out there.
My last question, what does it mean to you to live an empowered life?
To live an empowered life is to be deeply connected to what it is that I need and want. Because if I am disconnected to what I need and want, then I'm looking outwards, I'm feeling resentful, I'm feeling um, I'm looking outside of myself in order to have myself feel good. What has me feel good is connected to how well I can meet my own needs and wants, right? I also recognize that I set the tone for the entire household as the matriarch. I'm the creator of delight in the household. And if that's the case, then I want to make sure that my needs, and this is not about, okay, I feel like eating this. It means at this moment, oh, I need a break. At this moment, I need to create a boundary here. So I want to go down the rabbit hole of what my needs and wants. Why do I want it? Why is this important to me? And then once I have a strong why, do the what it takes in order to meet that need. And then I feel like I'm living the life that I want to and connected to the values that I hold. So, yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much for joining us today. This was an amazing conversation.
Thank you so much for having me. It was my pleasure to be here.
Thank you so much for joining us for this episode of Empowered Kids TV. I'd like you to do us two favors. If this is your first time here, be sure to subscribe and press the bell icon so we can notify you of upcoming episodes and you don't miss any of our amazing programs. And if you found value, please share it. It still takes a village. So share this with your family and friends. As we always say here at Empowered Kids TV, you're just one connection away. With love and gratitude, empowerers. Until next time.